Hello everyone, welcome back to the Artist Dialogue. This video is part of our playlist called the Weekly Roundup, where Ash and myself talk about exciting, interesting business news that happened over the week. Hi Ash, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yourself, Saud?
I'm doing good. I think four days into Ramadan, so I think we're into the groove. I think I'm feeling energetic, back to normal. How are you?
That's yeah. I know what you mean. I think first 3 days are quite tough. So for those of our listeners not aware, it's the Islamic month of Ramadan. So Muslims up and down the country and the world will be fasting for 30 days. So that's kind of sunrise to sunset, no eating, drinking, and it's a time of reflection and prayer. So hence, Saud, if we make any mistakes today, we're okay because
Yeah,
I think we've got another at least 3 hours before we have to break our fast.
3 hours.
So it's that the final sprint.
The final third.
And it's also worth pointing out, we wouldn't if we were still on our audio podcast, people wouldn't get to appreciate your shirt, Saud.
Oh
So
no.
it's worth. It's also worth pointing out the shirt, which is lovely. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's nice from the office whites and navies and
It is,
blacks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, very nice. It adds some color to it, so I love it. So this week, I think again, just like last time we talked about this, it's hard to walk past the whole Credit Suisse,
Mm,
issue going on. So it seems to be every week, so we have a banking crisis.
yeah.
It was very quiet for years because we had the 2007, 2008, and all the banking crisis. Then it's been very quiet.
Mm,
And it's almost as if people are building their trust back into banking, and then
yeah.
we suddenly have two in a row. And like all bad things, unfortunately, there's usually coming threes. So I wasn't going to talk about Credit Suisse because we talked about Silicon Valley Bank last time. So
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about something a bit completely off piece,
Okay.
which is embedded sensors.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if people are familiar with embedded sensors, but embedded sensors are basically when, as the name suggests, you take your various sensors, and rather than waiting for something to go wrong, you build this into the infrastructure, you build it into whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
So to bring that to life with an example, you would have embedded sensors in road network. And what it would do is it'd say, by the way, this part of the road is deteriorating. It could also tell what type of traffic is on there, the volume of traffic, all sorts of stuff. So the sensor is then designed to then communicate somewhere to say either we're seeing a deterioration of the road. So rather than issue management, which is what we tend to do today, which is there's a pothole, someone makes a complaint, someone else comes out, fixes a hole till the next time there's a hole.
Yeah.
Now, what embedded sensors do is they go, actually, before we know it's going to be a pothole, we can then inform someone to say, by the way, this is deteriorating. So before it becomes an issue, come and manage it.
Hmm.
And it also then helps you because a lot of roads are designed with loads of assumptions in place. I'm
Yeah.
obviously picking roads, but you could use this in all sorts of industries. And actually, what the embedded sensor does is it helps you then understand that are my assumptions real or not.
Hmm.
And that could be in all sorts of different places. But again, sticking to the road analogy, is you go, well, actually, we thought this was a local road. We thought there'd be 100 cars a month going on this, and we thought there'd be family type, traffic. What we're seeing is 1,000 vehicles a month, and it's all heavy load, and it's all construction traffic for some reason.
Hmm.
The sensors then can do with all the lovely stuff we have around connectivity with APIs, etc. You could connect that to all sorts of things. Then you could connect that to traffic information. You could connect that to behaviors. You could connect that to legislation. So, classic one is the low emission zone. Now, imagine you had embedded sensors into, and for those not aware, Glasgow is starting to introduce a low emission zone. I think it kicks in from June,
Uh,
and a lot of cities across the UK and the world are starting to do these low emission zones. And basically, what they do is they say if a vehicle is of a certain age or of a certain type of vehicle, you can no longer drive into the city centre without incurring a fine.
okay.
And the point is to reduce
Yeah.
emissions in city centres. And so at the moment, it's all additional structure your building, you're having to build cameras, you're having to set up all these external sensors everywhere. And even then, they just don't pick anything up. Now imagine you had these sensors that were programmable built into the road network. And then you could just go, oh, I know where my sensors are. I'm going to now create a circle around that city. Now, anyone that goes past that sensor, it connects to the camera that's already there at the traffic light and does a vehicle registration check. It can do all sorts, basically, is kind of the point. That's mine for this week.
It's quite interesting. It makes me think that, so basically embedded sensor, it's constantly collecting and sending data to your system, to your computer, and you can... So that's fun, because that made me think of a few applications. I actually... Yash, you disappeared for a second.
Yes, okay? my embedded sensor fell over. But yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I actually thought of something. I was reading the other day about blood pressure monitors, and how the ideal way to test your blood pressure is over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that too continuously after every 15 minutes. But we don't have the technology. Yeah. It's just a pain. It's just cumbersome to actually do that. So as our smartwatches progress, the embedded sensors in those, they can actually constantly monitor our blood pressure, know what times of the day or what events make us shoot up or go low.
Yeah.
I think embedded sensors have quite a few applications from health to manufacturing. I read quite a while ago about an article regarding embedded sensors, I think in machinery and in plants, where they would send data of vibrations and the intensity and frequency of vibrations that would inform the organization, okay, a breakdown might occur in the next week. Get your maintenance person on hand and get the parts required, and that saves production lines from holding up. So I think it's quite an exciting thing.
It is, and funny you should mention kind of the biosensors. So they're already talking about embedded sensors, i.e., being embedded in you as an individual. So you can kind of effectively ingest the sensor.
Okay.
And then it, like you said, it kind of monitors all sorts of stuff. But obviously the things that are on your surface of your body, they use lights and all sorts of stuff to try and understand stuff. But if it's in your bloodstream, if it's in there, it's much more accurate.
I don't know what I feel about that.
Yeah, I know. It starts to get a bit futuristic, doesn't it? A bit Minority Report. But the other one was quite really interesting, and it's very early stages, is earthquakes is something that we just cannot predict, in the sense that we know where all the fault lines are, so we know there's a likelihood for an earthquake, but we tend not to get warnings ahead of it. You kind of get very short notice, and then the earthquake happens. So they were talking about, and obviously, we're talking many years in the future, if you had these kind of sensors, the logic would be that the sensor, as you said, has the ability to receive and transmit information. Now, that could be anything. So you could, in theory, build a sort of a network of sensors across the globe, and then you could change what you want to use them for. And one of the things they've kind of talked about is actually, a bit like a wave. The earthquake starts somewhere, and then the wave travels, and eventually, it has an impact. And so imagine you could kind of have much more information readily available, because right now we have to very consciously monitor things, and that takes a lot of time and effort, people, all that, cost. Whereas actually, if this was embedded, you can have all sorts of early warning signals, and so that the potential's there. What they're trying to do, as with all technology, is how do you do this en masse? How do you create the connectivity? Where does all this data sit? Because it's going to be capturing so much information. How do you separate the noise from the good stuff? Is the trick. But watch this space. It sounds like it's got some interesting future ahead.
No, most definitely. It seems quite interesting, and the application, like we just talked about healthcare, about plants, about public transport, and they're countless, and it's interesting to see where the world's going, especially so this week's been quite interesting. There've been loads of videos coming out about ChatGPT 4, about I think it was Midjourney 5, about this robot that's very lifelike and has expressions on its face and can listen to you and talk back. So one of them makes realistic but digital images, and you can't differentiate them from reality. The other is ChatGPT. Everyone knows about that, and the robot I just
Yeah.
told you. So, but we talked about technology quite a bit. I'm going to talk about something a little simpler. Ryan Reynolds. Have you heard of him, Ash? I hope you have.
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah,
Green Lantern, or Deadpool.
his worst film. Yeah.
Yeah, so Deadpool is an entrepreneur these days as well as an actor, and he sold his organization Mint Mobile, which was a virtual mobile operator, to T-Mobile for $1.35 billion. Now, that's amazing. It's considering he started from an actor. He didn't climb up the corporate ranks and then move up to start his own thing. He started acting, and now he sold his company for $1.35 billion. But that's not the only thing interesting. In 2020, he sold his drinks brand Aviation Gin for $600 million. So we see a pattern that he's building brands and he's selling them.
Yeah.
And if I look at what he's currently doing, it's like the future for Ryan Reynolds and his what he's doing with business. It's more exciting. He's got a creative marketing agency called Maximum Effort. He owns Wrexham AFC. It's a football club, and he's making a documentary over it. And he's an actor. And it got me thinking, okay, how was his journey into business? Assuming he didn't know about business, and assuming it must have been quite a big jump. And that thing came from Deadpool. That's where the spark came from. So he pitched the idea of Deadpool. The studios liked the idea, but not enough to give it a big budget. They gave it a small budget, but then at the same time, they said, Ryan, you can do anything you want with the budget. You have creative freedom to use that money to market the film, the movie as like any way you want. And that's what he did. He started guerrilla marketing. He started showing up in the Deadpool costume. He started leaving those swords and the props from the movie around to get people's attention, get people started to talk about the movie, and anticipation and hype built up. And that's what his start was, because after that movie, he realized that I can use my humor and the way I think and add value to movies. So he started off Maximum Effort as a agency which marketed films, and then he used it towards marketing. And if you look at Aviation Gin, Mint Mobile, Wrexham, the crux of these companies of his are his marketing acumen, the brand, and how he tells stories, and people like those stories and people laugh at those ads. So that's why he's using humor and the ability to relate with the consumer to propel these businesses to multi-million-dollar valuations. And I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah. And it's amazing. And it's funny because he's the other actor that does something similar is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And people see him as an actor, but he's a massive businessman as well. Massive being the operative word, because he's a big guy. But you're right. They've kind of jumped from the character that they are in the movies and translated that to the business arena. Because the Ryan Reynolds you kind of see on social media is the Ryan Reynolds that's the actor, in the sense the characters he plays in the movies.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really kind of notice about him versus some of the other actors, he's very accessible. So, he engages directly with the public.
Yeah.
And he's very active on social media. He's very kind of there's a lot of depreciating humor, about him. So he doesn't come across like, I'm really famous, leave me alone kind of thing. He's very, very accessible.
Yeah.
But he's also, like you said, he's very entrepreneurial, and he's smart enough to translate that into, essentially kind of dollar bills and money, because he's going, right, I've got a brand. I've got, a huge following on various social media platforms. And just like, the TikTokers of today and the social media people of today who aren't actors, they're just social media people. Yeah. He's gone, I've already got fame. I've already got a brand name. I'm now a social media entrepreneur. And I'm now going to go and, develop some products. Yeah. And you can see him, how he does that. And you're right, he just does that so cleverly. And it's even like, he managed to convince Hugh Jackman to come back for Deadpool 3.
Yeah, yeah,
And again, that's
yeah.
he's seen an opportunity to go. Why would people be interested in his third movie? Because they've
Mm,
seen it once, they've seen it two,
yeah.
and at the same time, everyone loved Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And his last film, Logan, was like, that's the end of
Oh,
Wolverine, and he said, I'm hanging up my gloves. But he managed to get him back, and that interaction he has with them, it's just people warm to it. So yeah, it's great. But he's not the first to kind of like turn $1 billion, because the other one was 50 Cent,
yeah.
and I don't know if you. So he had, and I forgot the name of it. It was a water company he set up, and
I think
I
I've
forgotten
heard
I
of it.
forgotten the name of it.
Yeah.
He sold it to Mars. I think it
Oh,
might be Smart Water or one of them, and he sold it to Mars for like $1 billion, and
cool.
he made more money in that one sale of a water company than he ever did in all the years of making records and albums and stuff. And then he unfortunately tried to do business, but didn't quite work out for him. I think he lost more money trying to do other things. So it's not as easy as it sounds. Because but they're all like Jay Z, Kanye West.
Yeah,
They're all turning their, Beyonce. They all make more money now with their brands and their organization and company than they do with their art.
I, I actually read on your point. I read something the other day online. Yeah, I think it was attention is the new currency. The number of people following you on social media, the number of fans you
Yeah,
have, the number of
yeah,
how famous you are, you can turn that
yeah,
into money, be it through
yeah,
businesses, be it through
yeah,
ads, or so. I think we see that really
yeah,
well. And another last point on this story that I found very interesting was that he was just an actor, and because he said yes to an opportunity, he asked for an opportunity. We've got a low budget. I want to help market this movie. It
yeah,
made him realize that he's actually got a passion and he's actually good at marketing.
yeah,
And he translated
yeah,
that into $1 billion sale. So
yeah,
I guess the lesson that I take, and maybe everyone else takes, is that don't say no to an opportunity. You never know where you'll end up. Because I'm sure
yeah.
he didn't think he'll be selling a company for $1 billion 10 years ago.
Agree. And I think if you believe in something, then you go for it, and you don't let anything stop you.
If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And if you want similar content, check out our other videos.